I really want to thank both Nancy and Andrea for teaching the lesson and for the whole team for their work on the lesson to really, give us an opportunity to talk about a whole multitude of issues. I think you had a lot of things included in the lesson, the idea of kind of linear growth versus exponential growth, but also the model of, bringing together an inclusion class, bringing together regular ed and special ed students. And I think the other thing that felt to me that you were really trying to do is think about having kids more strongly understand connections between the different representations of equations and graphs and tables, and really what was really evident is how much work you had done to try to think about where are the places, in the lesson do we influence kids thinking about either the linear versus exponential, where are the places we're connecting ideas across those different representations. And so I think even though lots of ideas had come up even in this discussion about things we could change in the lesson, it was really clear how much care you had taken to really think about, they're going to see lots of patterns in here if they're looking at these different tables. What could we do to really help them focus in on the things we want them to look at? And I thought those questions that you offered in terms of having them look at the changes in the table and the changes in the graphs and then the equations, and having them to have an opportunity to talk about that. I agree with some of the earlier comments, and I think it's some of the tables, kids had different ideas, and when we came to the larger group, it seemed like everybody was in agreement, but I think it was partly some of the kids who had different ideas, they might have been more vocal about their ideas in a smaller kind of setting. And when they saw everybody else, because you saw that, you were even surprised at how everyone seemed to be kind of jumping on the bandwagon and agreeing with so one thing I was thinking about is just, especially with your goal of trying to bring out different ideas from different students, having opportunities for them to kind of talk about them. And I know the setting really made it hard. They were, new to each other, and they were really having a challenge kind of talking to each other. The other thing that I was really, really interested in was the thing that people were just talking about at the end in terms of the mathematics, because I know your lesson really focused on linear growth versus exponential growth, but the thing that popped out at me was there was this opportunity to talk about the difference between kind of recursive relationships. So in the doubling problem, how they were filling out the table was actually taking the value from the one before, and what you really wanted them to focus on was the kind of closed form equation, that it looked like it was the explicit form. So instead of being adding 1,000, it's 1,000 times x. And I saw in some of the early work, I think it was, I'm trying to remember, it was Jamie, I think, when she was looking at those 3 questions that you asked them to compare tables, graphs, and equations, she said something about for the linear, that what it was a combination of multiplication and addition, so it was like 3x plus 1. Mm-hmm. So she thought that what you were getting was so the operations there were multiplication and addition, and for exponents it was, I forget what language she used, but it was multiplying it by itself. But then they were also noticing, kids were noticing that the pattern in the table was addition, so that you would add 3 each time. And I think that's actually a fairly big idea in mathematics, moving from that kind of recursive form to a kind of closed form or explicit form. And it felt like it was kind of snuck in this lesson, that there was a kind of opportunity to kind of connect to that idea. And so part of what I wondered about is, your problem kind of set up a chance to look at how would we move from that recursive form to, and at the end of the discussion there was that, but I just wonder whether in the lesson there's an opportunity to build that idea as well as what you were planning on.